The diplomatic summit on HFY Prime shimmered under the glow of twin suns, its towering spires of glass and alloy stretching toward the sky. The Galactic Council had gathered here, as they had for centuries, convening the most powerful species in the known universe under one banner of fragile unity. But for all its grandeur, the halls of the Council reeked of politics, hidden agendas, whispered deals, and, for humanity, a precarious balancing act. General Nathaniel Stryker walked with measured precision through the main concourse, the heels of his polished boots clicking against the pristine marble floors. Tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying the weight of wars won and lost, he was a man who commanded attention without asking for it. The Council saw him as a military asset, a necessary evil for the survival of Earth's place in galactic affairs. But to those who had fought beside him, he was something else entirely, a warrior, a tactician, a force of nature wrapped in human flesh. At his side, his son, Julius, darted forward, eyes wide with the wonder only a child could possess. The 10-year-old had inherited his father's sharp gaze, but none of his weariness. His boundless curiosity had already led him too close to classified discussions, and Stryker had warned him, gently but firmly, to stay close. But Julius had never been one to heed caution. "You think they'll let me see the Hall of Records?" the boy asked, glancing up at his father with a hopeful grin. Stryker's lips twitched into something resembling a smile. "Only if you don't go running off where you're not supposed to." Julius rolled his eyes but nodded, though they both knew it was a promise he wouldn't keep. Watching from the shadows of the chamber was Admiral Valtor S.E.K. Harn, a high-ranking official from the Zorak Dominion. His elongated, scaled form shifted under his ceremonial robes, the ridges along his skull glistening under the chamber's artificial lighting. He had long despised humanity, viewing their rapid rise as an insult to the established order. They were a young species, barely a century into interstellar diplomacy, yet they had a presence here. More than a presence, a growing threat. When Valtor's slitted eyes fell upon the human child, a slow, calculated smirk crept across his face. Julius, ever the explorer, had already slipped away, weaving between towering alien dignitaries and vanishing into the corridors beyond. The grand convocation hall was vast, filled with chambers that only those of high clearance could enter. Yet the boy, in his youthful ignorance, found himself standing in one such place, a dimly lit chamber where voices spoke in hushed tones. He pressed himself against the cold metal wall, peering through a small gap between two towering pillars. Inside, a secret meeting unfolded. Valtor stood at the center, speaking with a figure cloaked in shadows, a being Julius did not recognize. Their conversation was in Zoraki, a language he barely understood, but certain words stood out. Betrayal, war, eradication. His breath hitched. The council was supposed to maintain peace, yet what he was hearing suggested something else entirely. His father had always said that war was never far from the minds of politicians. Julius had never truly understood what that meant, until now. He took a step back, but his small frame triggered an unseen sensor. A soft, metallic beep echoed through the chamber. Valtor's eyes snapped toward the sound. Julius turned and ran. His heart pounded as he sprinted down the corridor, his mind racing with the knowledge he wasn't supposed to have. He didn't make it far. Security drones, sleek, spider-like machines with glowing red optics, descended from the walls, blocking his path. A voice boomed from behind him, calm yet laced with menace. "Little human," Valtor said, his tone almost amused. "You shouldn't be here." Julius swallowed hard, his pulse hammering against his ribs. I was just looking around. I didn't mean to." Valtor crouched before him, reptilian eyes studying him with predatory interest. Children are always so curious. It's a pity they never learn the dangers of knowing too much. The last thing Julius saw was the Admiral's cold smile before the world around him faded into blackness. When Stryker realized his son was missing, his calm demeanor shattered. His hands clenched into fists, the air around him charged with an unseen storm. His voice was sharp, cutting through the chatter of diplomats as he barked out orders. "Find him. Now." Elias Drake, his second in command, had already begun scanning security feeds, his expression grim. "Sir, there's something you need to see." Stryker stepped forward, his gut twisting as the screen flickered to life. What he saw stole the air from his lungs. Julius stood in the center of the Judgment Square, bound in energy restraints. Above him, an enormous hollow screen displayed charges in multiple languages. Treason, espionage, crimes against the Galactic Council. A tribunal of alien officials loomed over him. The trial was a farce. There was no evidence, no defense, no chance. Valtor presided over it, his voice echoing with righteous condemnation. "The human child has been found guilty," he announced, his words ice cold. "The punishment is immediate execution." The feed cut out. For the first time in his life, Stryker froze. Then something inside him snapped. He moved before he could think, storming toward the chamber doors, but council guards barred his path. Drake grabbed his shoulder, his voice low but urgent. "Sir, if you fight them now, you'll start a war." Stryker turned, his eyes burning with fury. "They just murdered my son." The words tasted like acid. He hadn't been there. He hadn't been able to save him. And now the council expected him to accept it. The air around him shifted, the weight of something unseen pressing down on the room. Even the guards hesitated. Drake's voice was quieter now. "You need to be smart about this. Not here. Not like this." Stryker's jaw tightened, his entire body coiled with rage. He forced himself to breathe, to think. The war they had just started? It wouldn't end with this moment. It would start with him. Without another word, he turned on his heel and walked away. But the way he walked, the way his shoulders squared, the way his movements became unervingly precise, spoke volumes. He wasn't retreating. He was preparing. And when he returned, the council would burn. The cold emptiness of space stretched endlessly beyond the viewing deck of the hidden military outpost on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. The facility was a relic of Earth's wartime past, buried deep beneath the icy surface, its existence known only to a select few. This was where General Nathaniel Stryker had come to disappear. Not to mourn, not to weep, to prepare. He stood at the center of the command room, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the holographic star map before him. His expression was carved from stone, devoid of grief, devoid of anything but an icy calculation that had kept him alive through countless wars. The Galactic Council had taken his son. They had called it justice, a necessary sacrifice to maintain their fragile authority. But they had made a mistake they could never undo. Behind him, Commander Elias Drake watched in silence. He had known Stryker for years, had fought alongside him in the darkest moments of humanity's expansion into the stars. He had seen him rage, seen him lead, seen him outthink enemies that should have crushed Earth before it ever had a chance to stand. But he had never seen him like this. "They expect me to grieve," Stryker said, his voice controlled, almost eerily calm. "To accept their ruling. To let them pat themselves on the back and move on." His eyes flickered toward the star map. "They're not ready for what happens next." Drake exhaled slowly. "You disappear for 6 days, resurface on Titan. No comms. No orders. No movements." He took a step closer. "Tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking." Stryker turned his head slightly, just enough to meet Drake's gaze. "I'm not thinking about it, Elias. I'm doing it." Drake swore under his breath and ran a hand down his face. "We go after them now. We start an interstellar war." "War is already here," Stryker said. "The moment they put a gun to my son's head and pulled the trigger, they chose this path." A long silence stretched between them. Drake sighed. "You have a plan." Stryker finally turned fully to face him. "I always have a plan." He activated the holographic display, shifting the star map to focus on HFY Prime, the capital of the Galactic Council. The city world was protected by orbital defense grids, shield generators, and a fleet large enough to crush any direct assault. But a direct assault was never the plan. "This is where it begins," Stryker continued. "The Council controls all fleet movements and intelligence through their main relay station. Cut their ability to coordinate, and we send them into chaos." Drake folded his arms. You mean to tell me you're planning to hit a council relay station? They've got enough security to. Not if they don't see it coming. Stryker tapped the interface, and a sleek, angular warship appeared in the projection. The Nightfall, Earth's most advanced prototype, a vessel designed for one thing: stealth. It was invisible to most sensor arrays, capable of slipping past enemy defenses undetected. Drake let out a low whistle. Didn't even know that thing was operational. It isn't, Stryker said. Not officially. But I know where it's docked. And I know who can get it moving. Drake exhaled. You're talking about the Ghost Vipers, aren't you? The name alone was enough to make most men uneasy. The Ghost Vipers weren't ordinary soldiers. They were Earth's most lethal special operations unit, ghosts on the battlefield, assassins with surgical precision. They were the kind of men called in when diplomacy failed and blood needed to be spilled. Stryker simply nodded. Drake let out a short laugh. We're really doing this, huh? Stryker's gaze hardened. You're either with me or you're not. Drake straightened, his usual smirk fading. You even have to ask. The mission began that night. The Ghost Vipers answered the call without hesitation. They had no loyalty to the Council, no love for the corrupt bureaucrats who sat safe behind their polished walls while soldiers bled on forgotten battlefields. Their loyalty was to Stryker, to the man who had led them through hell and back. 12 men boarded the Nightfall, their presence a silent promise of what was to come. Their faces were hardened by war, their movements precise. They did not ask for details. They did not ask for reassurances. They only asked when. By the time they reached HFY Prime's outer orbit, the plan was set. The relay station hovered just beyond the planet's gravitational reach, a vast lattice of interconnected satellites and transmission hubs. This was where the Council controlled the flow of information, where they manipulated narratives, where they ensured their enemies remained blind. That ended tonight. The Nightfall drifted through the void, undetectable, its engines humming just above a whisper. Stryker stood at the command deck, watching as the station grew closer. The Ghost Vipers were already suiting up, equipping tachyon disruptor rifles, weapons capable of piercing even the most advanced shielding. The drop was silent. 12 figures descended onto the relay station, their movements smooth, practiced. The first guard never saw them. The second had only enough time to widen his eyes before a blade slid between his ribs. The third died before he could even breathe. The infiltration was executed with surgical precision. Stryker moved through the corridors like a predator, his rifle low but ready. They reached the control room without raising an alarm. The station's security was complacent, its personnel too arrogant to believe they could ever be breached. Drake hacked into the mainframe within seconds. His fingers flew over the console as data streams flickered and died, entire communication networks crashing into silence. One by one, the Council's fleets went dark. Stryker tapped his communicator. We're in. But then, a blaring alarm. Drake's head snapped up. They know we're here. Stryker's grip on his weapon tightened. Then let's give them a reason to be afraid. The first wave of reinforcements arrived within minutes, Zorak enforcers pouring into the station, weapons raised. The Ghost Vipers moved like specters, cutting through them with ruthless efficiency. Gunfire echoed through the corridors, flashes of blue and red illuminating the darkness. Stryker fired with the precision of a man who had nothing left to lose. He did not retreat. He did not hesitate. A Zorak soldier lunged at him. Stryker sidestepped, grabbing the alien's arm and twisting with brutal efficiency. Bones snapped. The soldier howled. Stryker silenced him with a single gunshot to the skull. Drake shouted over the comms. We've got inbound reinforcements. We need to move, now. Stryker scanned the battlefield. The relay station was already compromised. There was nothing left to hold. Ghost Vipers fall back, he ordered. They moved quickly, retreating back to the extraction point as more Council forces flooded the corridors. Explosions rocked the station as Nightfall's railguns fired on pursuing enemies, covering their escape. As Stryker boarded the ship, he cast one last look at the burning relay station. The Galactic Council was blind. And that was only the beginning. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The attack on the relay station had severed their ability to coordinate fleet movements, cutting off entire sectors from Central Command. Messages sent through secondary channels were slow, unreliable, and in many cases intercepted. For the first time in centuries, the ruling body of the galaxy was blind. Admiral Valtor S.E. Kaharn stood in the war chamber of the Central Convocation Hall, his clawed fingers digging into the edge of the long, obsidian table before him. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, their voices rising in a cacophony of panic and accusation. How had this happened? How had a single human warship, a mere speck in the grand machinery of the Council, managed to strike such a devastating blow? A holographic projection of High Chancellor Orvin Malachi, an elder of the revered Drain Collective, flickered above the table, his wrinkled features contorted in fury. You assured us Earth was under control, Admiral. You swore its military was subdued, that General Stryker was a relic, not a threat. Valtor exhaled sharply, his reptilian slits narrowing. I underestimated his response, he admitted, though the words tasted like bile. But he is alone. One man, a rogue fleet. He cannot stand against the full weight of the Council. A deep, guttural laugh rumbled from the far end of the chamber. Grand Strategist Kravos, a hulking brute of the Tarakni, leaned forward, amusement flickering in his 4 black eyes. A rogue fleet? That rogue fleet just severed our main intelligence artery and assassinated 2 of your high-ranking officers on the relay station. If that's your definition of alone, I suggest you reconsider your strategy, Admiral. Valtor clenched his jaw, but before he could respond, a shrill beep signaled an incoming transmission. A hologram blinked to life, revealing Marshal Kriegus Tvok, the Council's most feared bounty hunter, his scaled crimson armor glinting under the dim chamber lights. His gaze was sharp, calculating. I assume you called me to clean up this mess, Tvok said, his voice like the grinding of stone. Valtor straightened. Stryker is hiding somewhere in the outer colonies. We need him eliminated before he does more damage. Tvok's lip curled. Eliminated? That implies he fears death. I will not just kill him. I will drag him back through these halls and chains and remind humanity why they were never meant to sit at our table. The transmission cut, and the chamber fell silent. Meanwhile, aboard the Nightfall, Stryker stood before his assembled ghost vipers, the dim glow of the war table casting harsh shadows across their hardened faces. The destruction of the relay station had been a critical first step, but they all knew the fight was far from over. Drake folded his arms, his expression grim. Council scrambling. They're blind, but they're not stupid. They'll retaliate, and they'll throw everything they have at us. Stryker's eyes flickered to the star map, now marked with multiple intercepted fleet movements. Let them. We don't need to fight their fleets. He pointed to a glowing icon representing HFY Prime. We just need to take their throne. Murmurs rippled through the group. It was one thing to sabotage a relay station. It was another to storm the heart of the Galactic Council. Drake leaned in. You want to take the fight to HFY Prime? Stryker nodded. Not a battle. A decapitation. This ends when we make an example out of the ones who ordered my son's execution. A moment of silence passed before Darius Kane, the team's demolition expert, let out a low whistle. Ballsy. I like it. Stryker turned back to the projection. We can't do it alone. The Council's grip is weakening. If we hit them now, we can force other factions to turn against them. But we need leverage. He keyed in a new set of coordinates. A prison transport ship, the Revenant, was en route to a classified black site facility. Aboard it, men like us, soldiers, captains, commanders, humans the Council had buried in the dark for daring to defy them. Drake raised an eyebrow. You're talking about a prison break. Stryker's lips curled into a rare smirk. Not just any prison break. A recruitment drive. The mission began under the cover of a dying star. The Revenant drifted through deep space, its engines humming softly, its security detail minimal. No one had ever attempted a rescue from a classified black site route before. They never expected Stryker. The Nightfall deactivated its cloaking system just long enough to fire a precision EMP burst, disabling the ship's security grid. The Ghost Vipers breached the hull in under 90 seconds, moving through the corridors like shadows. The first guards barely had time to reach for their weapons before they were cut down. Inside the containment level, hundreds of prisoners lay in cold sleep stasis. Drake hacked the control panel, overriding the security measures. One by one, the pods hissed open, and men long thought dead awoke to war. One of them, Captain Rhys Morgan, a former Earth Alliance officer, blinked against the harsh light, his body weak from stasis. When he saw Stryker, recognition flickered in his eyes. "General," he rasped. Stryker knelt beside him. "You up for one last fight?" Morgan's lips curled into a slow grin. "I thought you'd never ask." Within minutes, the prisoners had been armed. The corridors of the Revenant became a battlefield as former captives tore through their captors, reclaiming what was stolen from them. By the time the Nightfall jumped to lightspeed, the Council had lost more than just another ship. They had lost control. Word spread like wildfire. The Council's enemies, factions once too fearful to rise, now saw an opening. Civil unrest spread across dozens of star systems, and for the first time in recorded history, planets openly defied the Council's decrees. Volter's worst fears had come true. In the central convocation hall, the Council convened once more, but this time it was not as rulers, but as cornered prey. Reports flooded in: military defections, planetary uprisings, assassinations of Council sympathizers. The stability of their empire was fracturing, and at the center of it all was one man, Stryker. Valtor slammed a fist onto the table. "Enough. Deploy the Armada. I want his ship hunted to the ends of the galaxy." Chancellor Malachi's voice was quieter, but far more deadly. "It is too late for that, Admiral." His wrinkled fingers traced a fracture in the obsidian table, as if it mirrored the crumbling foundation of their authority. Stryker does not seek survival. He seeks annihilation. Volter's claws dug into his palm. "Then we give it to him." On the bridge of the Nightfall, Stryker watched the intercepted Council transmissions in silence. The Council had taken his son. Now, he was taking everything from them. The void of space burned with the glow of impending war. The Galactic Council's Armada, a force of overwhelming numbers, had assembled above HFY Prime, their warships forming an impenetrable shield around the capital world. It was a show of force meant to send a message, not just to Stryker, but to the entire galaxy. Stryker stood on the bridge of the Nightfall, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the formation before him. This was their final stand, the culmination of everything that had brought them to this moment. The Council wanted to crush him, to erase him from history as if his son had never lived. But they had already lost control. Rebellions had spread like wildfire, entire sectors breaking away from Council rule. Even now, defecting fleets drifted at the edges of the battlefield, waiting, watching. Drake exhaled slowly beside him. "We're outnumbered 100 to 1, sir. Even with the Ghost Vipers, even with the prisoners we freed, this is..." "A battle we win," Stryker interrupted. His voice was calm, steady, unshakable. Drake studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then let's make it count." The Nightfall was not designed for direct combat, but it wasn't here to fight a conventional war. It was here to deliver a killing blow. Stryker activated the ship-wide comms. "This is General Stryker. We all know why we're here. The Council thinks they can erase us. They think their fleets make them invincible. But today, we remind them that power is not their birthright, that the strongest are not the ones who hide behind walls, but the ones who are willing to burn them down. We take their world. We take their throne. We end this now." The response came in silence, in the steady preparation of warriors who knew they were facing death but did not fear it. The first wave came fast. Council warships surged forward, their cannons glowing with energy, their missile silos unlocking. The Ghost Vipers launched in strikecraft, weaving through incoming fire with unmatched precision. Explosions rippled through the black as Council ships were taken down, but it wasn't enough to shift the battle. They were too many. And that was exactly what Stryker had planned for. As the battle raged, the Nightfall pushed through the chaos, its stealth capabilities reactivated, slipping undetected past the front line toward the true objective, the central convocation hall. Drake's fingers flew over the controls. Cloak will only hold for another 3 minutes before they recalibrate their scanners. That's all the time we need, Stryker said. The ship's hull trembled as debris struck the outer plating. Alarms flashed, but they were already through. The skyscrapers of HFY Prime loomed ahead, a city built to withstand planetary bombardments. But nothing in the galaxy was built to withstand Stryker. The Nightfall punched through the final security perimeter, descending toward the Council's headquarters at terminal velocity. Anti-air turrets locked on, too slow. The ship released drop pods in rapid succession, each containing a Ghost Viper armed to the teeth. They hit the surface with deadly precision, deploying instantly into combat formations as HFY Prime's defenders scrambled to react. Stryker was the last to drop. The impact sent a shockwave through his bones, but he was already moving before the dust settled. The city was burning, sirens wailing, the air filled with gunfire. His team pushed forward, cutting through Council soldiers like they were nothing more than obstacles. The halls of the central convocation were slick with blood, the war raging into the very heart of power. They reached the Council chamber within minutes. The doors blew inward, smoke curling into the Grand Hall, as dozens of alien delegates recoiled in fear. At the center of the room, Admiral Valtor Esikaharn stood waiting, a plasma blade humming in his clawed grip. His reptilian lips curled. "You think this ends with my death, human?" Stryker didn't answer. He moved. Valtor was fast, but Stryker was faster. Their blades clashed, the force of each strike sending sparks flying. Valtor fought with practiced brutality, but he was fighting a man who had spent his entire life in war. Stryker feinted left, twisted, and drove his blade through Valtor's chest. The Admiral's eyes widened in shock. He gasped, blood bubbling between his fangs. Stryker leaned in close. "This ends with all of you." He twisted the blade, then let the body drop. The Council chamber erupted into chaos. Some delegates surrendered immediately, throwing themselves to the ground in desperation. Others fled, only to be cut down by the Ghost Vipers. Stryker stepped onto the central dais, his bloodied weapon hanging at his side. The galaxy was watching. Every intercepted transmission, every planetary broadcast, was relaying this moment to every world under the Council's rule. He turned his gaze toward the nearest live feed drone. "The Galactic Council is no more. Your leaders are dead. Your fleets are broken. This war is over." He took a slow breath, then spoke the words that would mark history forever. "Earth does not bow. Earth does not forget. And Earth does not forgive." Across the galaxy, planets erupted into celebration. The Council strongholds collapsed one by one, their rule shattered in a single, decisive strike. The old order was gone, replaced not by an empire, but by a galaxy that had learned to fear the name Nathaniel Stryker. Drake stood beside him as the final embers of war smoldered. "It's over." Stryker exhaled slowly, looking out over the ruined city, the burning remains of what had once been absolute power. "No," he said quietly. "It's just the beginning.